This audio presentation of the mystical number 7 by Connie Mendez is brought to you by audioenlightenment.com. Copyright 2014. All rights reserved. Introduction. Almost since the day when man first developed the concept of numbers and countings, certain numbers have taken on a greater significance than others, and foremost among these is the number 7. Consider the many appearances the number 7 makes in everyday life. There are 7 days in a week, 7 days in the week of biblical creation. There are 7 distinct colors in the visible spectrum: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. 7 notes in the standard musical scale. 7 ages of man. 7 months of pregnancy before a fetus is developed enough to survive outside the womb. There is a sense of completeness, a fulfillment, of a wheel come full circle about the number 7. The 7th day is the day of rest. Blue shades through violet to become red in the spectral wheel. The 8th note of the music octave is the first note repeated in a higher frequency. The sequences of conception to viability, birth to death, are governed by the number 7. The artist's rule of thumb is that the height of a person is roughly 7 times the height of the head, from chin to crown. There are just a few of the most obvious and best-known ways in which this remarkable number affects our lives. In this book, I'll be acquainting you with some of the subtler and lesser-known manifestations of the number 7, and how it will affect your own personal development and spiritual evolution. I take it for granted you are reading these books in sequence, that you have studied and put into practice the principles laid out in the first 2 books in this series, entitled Metaphysics for Everyone and Your Heart's Desire. If you have not, you will miss many references made in this book. The series is planned as a gradual and cumulative teaching process, and each book is built on the knowledge and principles which the reader has assimilated and employed from the previous one. There is a maxim that said, "When a student is ready, the teacher will appear." If you have followed the guidelines of the books in this series so far, you are ready for the teacher you now hold in your hands. Connie Mendez. The Brotherhood of St Germain. The Brotherhood of St Germain is a name of group devoted to a study of metaphysics, established by me in Caracas, Venezuela in 1945. The name derives from the Ascended Master, Comte de St Germain, considered the reincarnation of Vishnu and ruler of this new era, which has been called the Golden Era of St Germain. We believe in the teaching of the Masters of Wisdom, the Great White Fraternity. These teachings are purely metaphysical, handed down by the Ascended Masters themselves, explained in terms understandable to the Western mind, and adapted to the standards of contemporary life as it is lived in the Aquarian Age, which began in 1954. The Brotherhood of St Germain does not practice or recommend so-called spiritism, or attempts to communicate with the astral subplanes. It does not recognize black magic, nor does it subscribe to any magical practices, or any other doctrine or activity that attempts to subvert free will, or is contrary to the full and conscious agreement of any child of God. It does not practice rites or ceremonies. It does not recommend special disciplines or diets other than those consistent with established principles of good health and common sense. Our instruction consists, first and foremost, of the awareness and practice of the presence of God and the law of mentalism, which we have mentioned before. Once you have demonstrated an understanding of these points, you will learn to dissolve and transmute your karma on this plane here and now without sacrifice or pain, through the application of the violet flame, the gift and talent brought by the ascended and most beloved Master, St. Germain, to his ministry. Joining the Brotherhood of St. Germain is simplicity itself. Your desire for metaphysical understanding is all the credential you need, and the study of the first 2 books in this series will prepare you for that understanding. Armed with desire and your increasing awareness, you'll find yourself experiencing new and positive aspects in your life. Here I must warn against consulting or being influenced by those who practice or advocate black magic or other misguided rituals, who try to determine the future or change their lives by means which are not of God. Such mediums or practitioners work through the manipulation of lies, hate, and revenge, as opposed to living in, for, and with the purest and most disinterested love, which is God's way, and is the only magic needed by the brothers and sisters of St. Germain. Furthermore, you do not need to know the future, nor do you need to change the course of events, since you will be a sole creator of your future, and you will be creating the future that is best for you through your actions and prayer. If you wish to understand beforehand the normal, everyday state of a metaphysician, read Psalm 91. I urge you to memorize it. As a guideline, you'll find it most useful in any situation. The following opening sentence is omitted in some translations and should be memorized as well. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. The Lord's Prayer. One prayer is a common link between all the Christian religions, and its fundamental thoughts exist in the other major religions as well. It is the Lord's Prayer, composed and given to us by Jesus with the specific purpose of effecting a radical change in our souls and lives. The Master Emmett Fox says it is more than a prayer. It is a concise formula for spiritual development. The prayer consists of 7 parts or clauses. Let's examine it part by part. First clause, Our Father who art in heaven. When you pronounce these first 2 words, Our Father, you declare that your Father is also the Father of all, that we are all brothers and sisters. You are praying for others as well as yourself, and you are fulfilling the law of love in doing so. Because all that you ask for yourself, you ask for all your brothers and sisters. Every father worthy of the name tries to keep his children from suffering and looks after those children's well-being to the best of his ability and in proportion to his means. Thus our Heavenly Father, having at his disposal infinite love and infinite means, will provide us with infinite protection against adversity, and offers as his legacy the joy and comfort of the kingdom of heaven. Just as a child molded after the parent, we are made in the image of God, and so we share the divine Spirit with all its gifts and powers. We live as children of heaven in a state of grace. Helping you toward that discovery is the purpose of these books. Our world, the world we live in, is the analog of the perfection we call heaven, or it can be if we make it so. And we can do so without becoming martyrs or ascetics, but in the joy of life. This world is a part of our Father's bequest, and is to be enjoyed. Our only obligation is to live in his grace and give thanks by saying with full understanding this prayer every day. Second clause, Hallowed be thy name. We give God many names, Yahweh, Jehovah, El, Allah, that we may address him in prayer. But the only name he has given us is, I am. In saying to Moses, I am that I am, these words cannot therefore precede your negative statements. When you say I am, you are also affirming your own legacy to godhood. Thus a negative statement following this declaration would be a lie. A lie would manifest itself in your own condition as a result of denying the perfection of God which lies within you. Thus when you pronounce the 4 words of the second clause, you affirm your status as a child of God, wishing yourself and your brothers and sisters the blessing of the name of God as you bless his name yourself. As you bless God's name, you bless your own. Third clause, Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. It is true that the will of the perfect Father toward his children is perfection, that nothing interfere with the realization of their wishes for happiness. But it is also true that guidance, not force, is the best teacher. A child must stumble in learning how to walk. He or she is not a puppet, but a distinct and individual creature, learning to control his or her own muscles and reactions. The child learns through practice and observation, through the loving advice and example of the parent. We have all learned through sometimes painful experience that our parents do not talk just to hear themselves or annoy us. They do so to warn and advise us, to preserve us from harm and lead us into happiness. And God's will is to lead us to the perfection that is the kingdom of heaven, by showing us how to create a life that can be heaven here on earth. So when we see Thy kingdom come, we are asking for the guidance that will bring that heavenly state of perfection to us in our daily lives, that God will literally be done on earth as well as in heaven. Fourth clause, Give us this day our daily bread. Bread means many things. For years bread, not to mention dough, has been slang for money. It obviously means food, sustenance, and as such it stands for the necessities of life, whatever we need to carry us from this day to the next. But to carry the analogy a little further, bread goes stale after one day. That's why we only ask for today's food. We know that tomorrow's will be forthcoming as well. We have only to ask, because it is our daily bread, and it has already been granted us, all of us. And in asking we show our awareness and assurance that all of us will be granted that God has already ordained as ours. This clause is a succinct expression of one of the basic prayers of metaphysics. Father, you have already decreed that I should have this. I wish for it under your grace, in harmony for all and in a perfect way. Thank you, Father, for I know that you have heard me. Everything we wish or need has been granted to us, even before we ask. Our asking, our prayer, is only the key that releases our wishes into our waiting hands and hearts. Fifth clause, Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. If you feel you have nothing to be forgiven for, you may as well stop reading. Fold your hands and wait for the high-ranking position that surely awaits you in paradise. If you feel you are not quite perfect, or that it might be slightly longer wait than you expected, please read on. We are not simply asking for forgiveness in this clause. We are asking for the justice of the law as well, and it is a two-edged sword. First of all, whatever our trespass, debts, sins, or whatever we call them, they are forgiven instantly. A sin admitted is a sin forgiven. God holds no grudges, but his law makes forgiveness conditional. You are forgiven for your wrongdoing, just as you forgive those who have wronged you. As you deal with others, so you will be dealt with. Your forgiveness is a fact, but you'll never truly feel its comfort unless you have forgiven all others in advance. If you feel that things are going wrong in your life, that you must make monumental efforts to achieve the slightest gain, don't blame it on bad luck. There's no such animal. All luck is of your own creation, a reflection of how you treat the world and those you share with it. If you examine your actions, you will find that you are not too harsh in your judgment of others, too grudging in praise, reluctant to forgive, and quick to blame your ill fortune on others. A change in attitudes will change your so-called luck, and it begins with forgiveness. Each night, make this statement as part of your bedtime ritual, and make sure that it is completely, absolutely sincere. I forgive all who need my forgiveness, every man, woman, and child. I forgive myself, and I ask the Father for his forgiveness. Do so with total honesty, not holding an iota of resentment for real or imagined wrongs. For resentment builds a wall between you and God, between you and all manifestations of happiness, prosperity, and inner peace. You make this a nightly ritual, or you may say it once with the utmost sincerity, so that when a resentment rears its head, you may conquer it by saying, I already forgave. If your resentment has to do with work, you might say, I forgave at the office. Sixth clause. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. This is a puzzling concept to many. Why would God lead us into temptation? The answer here is that he wouldn't. But in leading us, or guiding us in our evolution, he allows us to walk a path ever increasing and ever more subtle forms of temptation, the greatest example of which is toward spiritual pride, the most difficult barrier between you and God. Jesus had a most effective saying to contravene the growth of such pride. I am tame and humble of heart. In short, we are asking our Father to lead us past temptation in our evolutionary growth, and to deliver us from any evil we may fall into through our own devices or weakness. And we have the assurance that to ask is to be granted what we ask. The Bible tells us, if the Son asks the Father for bread, he will not be given a snake. God delivers us from evil by showing us, allowing us to realize that evil is unreal, that has no place in perfect harmony, but that we must beware of subtlety. It has been said that the greatest sin are those of which we are not conscious. The drift toward pride is a gradual and imperceptible one. By asking God to make us aware of our unseen flaws, we can avoid this and other errors and be delivered from evil. Seventh clause. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. This is the ultimate affirmation that God alone rules and controls the universe, that to him alone goes all glory, and that this truth is unchanging for all time. These words are designed to keep us from spiritual pride, the very pride which led to the fall of Lucifer, once the most revered of angels. Whether we take this as an allegory or not, it remains a clear and constant warning of the peril of pride. When we say these words, let us do so with total sincerity. The seven aspects of God. Let us define the difference between science and religion by saying that science represents divine wisdom and religion represents divine love. Yet there is no difference, just as that which we call God or the Creator is a singularity, one and indivisible, so is all of creation one with its Creator and with itself. What we see as differences are but manifestations. Science and religion are expression of the same knowledge. To paraphrase Arthur C. Clarke, any science sufficiently advanced is indistinguishable from magic. What then are the aspects of one God? They are life, love, truth, intelligence, unity, spirit, principle. In my first book, I used the term unity to mean soul. The terms may be considered interchangeable. God is life. God is everywhere. Life is everywhere. And God is indestructible. So is life. What we call death is merely a transformation to another aspect of existence. and those other aspects are infinite. God isn't a kindly old man with a long white beard. He is indefinable, and he is all life, from the simplest protozoa to the seed that produces a tree, to the self-awareness that is man and beyond, to the other life forms that inhabit this unmeasurable universe, many of which we would not even recognize as life. There may be creatures who live so slowly or so fast that our earthbound senses would not be aware that life on other planes requires no physical structure at all. Life, whatever its form or lack of it, does not end. It evolves, and evolution itself is unending. For the ultimate being is the Creator, and when life is taken into the being of God, there is not an end, but a beginning. For God is not only the Omega of life, he is the Alpha, the fount from which all life begins. Life is invisible, as is its Creator. We see its manifestation from the dividing of an amoeba to the birth of an Einstein to be. But we cannot, at least at this stage of our existence, see its essence, which is God. So when we speak of life, we must speak of life as we know it. The truth of life is threefold: health, happiness, and enthusiasm. These three aspects add up to well-being. And it is for this truth, the beating of our hearts, the pleasure and the smile of a loved one, the anticipation of being and doing that come with every new day, that we must thank the Creator with every breath. We should meditate about life, because by doing so we manifest it more fully, building our health, happiness, and enthusiasm through our awareness of the perfection of life. Through this meditation we become aware that illness, misery, and despair are lies. They are anti-life, and are only reflections of our own faltering belief in truth. The Bible said, "God's happiness is my strength." It's true. Reflect on the fact that God cannot know sadness, for sadness cannot exist except in direct contradiction to God. If there is no sadness in God, then there can be no sadness in you, for you are of God. The same is true of your health. Metaphysics does not deny physicians their due. They are trained to heal the faltering body. But if the spirit cannot heal itself, the best doctors can do little to help, for what they treat are symptoms of a spiritual sickness. As you progress in your studies, meditations, and evolutions, you will discover how to cure your ills. The highly evolved will also be able to cure the ills of others by convincing them of the truth of life. It is not wishing that makes it so, it is knowing. God is love. You undoubtedly heard this phrase before, more or less accepting it without too much thought, but it is a statement meant to be taken quite literally. Love exists, like life, without tangible essence, and is visible only through its manifestations. The feelings you cannot deny, the feelings and actions of others, and the source of these feelings, their essence is God. In fact, it can logically be stated that no one who's ever felt love can be an atheist. If you believe in love, you believe in God by believing in one of his aspects, whether you are aware of it or not. In fact, if you believe in good as opposed to evil, that is sufficient. Jesus said, "Do not call me good. There is only one good, and that is God." Good is in the majority. We consider that the number 7 is the key number in the universe, as this book attempts to demonstrate, and that this prime number is composed of 3 negative and 4 positive elements. Thus the good always outweighs the bad. Positive, plus, or true is existence. Negative, minus, or false is nothingness. The universe exists, and we exist within it. Even empty space is not a perfect vacuum. There are atoms of hydrogen throughout this so-called emptiness. Photons, the particles which make up light, stream steadily into every direction from every star. When we say that nature abhors a vacuum, it's another way of saying that God does not permit absolute nothingness. And since good is dominant, we are given the advantage over evil. By simply blessing the good in any situation, however unpleasant or evil the circumstance may appear, we cancel the bad. It's a process as simple as subtracting 3 negatives from 4 positives. We are left with 1 positive, which is the manifestation of good. It is love, the love of good, which can turn a situation around by simply saying, "I bless the good in the situation, and I ask that it be shown to me." You have reaffirmed the positive. Similarly, if you feel a person harbors ill will toward you, or intends to harm you in any way, say to him or her silently, "I surround you with my circle of love." You are surrounding that person with God and evil intention as you say, "Don't have a prayer." Surround your home, your loved ones, every aspect of your life with this same circle of love, and no true harm can come to you or yours. Your goodwill, which is of course love, will triumph in every situation. Simply remember to apply this formula whenever it is needed. Love, like all the aspects of God, is within you, merely waiting to be made manifest. You'll find as you use this and other formulas to your daily life that your own appearance, your self-manifestation will change. It will probably be more obvious to others than to you, because that same goodwill, the godliness you have always had within you, will have risen to the surface. This is true of all people. The higher self, the Christ within us, is only waiting to be summoned. All the aspects of God are there. A human being is not inherently evil, as some would have us believe, because all humans carry God within them. St. Paul said, "You are transformed through your mind's renewal." This renewal is achieved by declaring the truth of divine love that is within you. You do this not only by putting that love into words, when you have nullified another's ill feeling or action against you. You must harbor no ill will of your own. You must not bear any grudge or wish for the person's punishment. You must not think of anyone as deserving punishment. You do not hate a child for breaking a valuable object. Abhor the act, not the child. By the same token, don't condone wrongfulness in others or in yourself in the name of forgiveness. Patting someone on the head and telling him or her that "that's all right, it doesn't matter," is quite different than forgiving. It makes you an accomplice in the wrongdoing, and does the other harm rather than good. Forgiving is love, condoning is indifference. Negative criticism, condemnation, and fear are destroyers, and they keep your prayers from being answered. If you find that nothing positive is happening as a result of your prayers, it's likely that you are harboring a resentment against someone or some situation. You are not acting in accordance with divine love. Love is more than feeling. It is sharing, trying to understand others, being faithful to them and to yourself. To wish others the good fortune you want for yourself, to enjoy beauty, to show goodwill and consideration, to be patient, to see the other's point of view, to smile, in short, to find and act on the good in every person and situation. A biblical story tells that Jesus and the apostles came upon a decomposing body of a dog while walking. The apostles covered their nose and eyes to avoid the stench and sight of death. Jesus merely commented, "Not even pearls are whiter than its teeth." To love is not only to see the good, but to teach it. Love is not giving alms in the street, giving your all to anyone who asks. It isn't your duty to fix other people's lives. Moving along your own personal evolutionary path is job enough for an individual, and bringing out the love within yourself will benefit all around you. Your lack of fear will inspire courage in others. Your forgiveness will allow others to forgive. Your own happiness, health, appreciation of beauty, and love of all that is life will elicit the same response in all who come in contact with you. This is love. God is truth. Truth is many things. It is the truth of a situation, the solution of a crime, the answer to a mathematical question, the time of day, the knowledge of how to produce energy from atomic fusion. These are relative truth, facts relying on the knowledge of other facts for their discovery. Then there is the beauty of a painting, the unquestioning love of a child, the majesty of a centuries-old tree, the scent of flowers and the breath of a crisp autumn air. They are absolute truth, living entities in themselves. They are the gestures of God. If there is a single word defining truth, it is perfection. All truth are part of the absolute truth, which is God, just as all forms of love are parts of divine love. So if you are at fault in a given situation, declare the truth. You will be calling on God, and He will show His truth, and people will change their attitude from blame to understanding, and the situation will be resolved. Your truth invokes God's forgiveness, and if another is at fault, do not proclaim it. Instead, ask for God's truth to be shown. You will find that the situation will resolve itself to your benefit. The ultimate truth is perfection, the resolution of a situation, the restoration of perfect harmony, for this is the order, the law of God's universe. God is intelligence. We call God omniscient or all-knowing. Intelligence is the comprehension and use of knowledge. A person with a photographic memory may know every word on a page he has just read, and still not understand the concepts those words express. Intelligence is the highest form of awareness, sentience, and it is possessed in varying degrees by every animal, plant, and stone, every creation in the universe, right down to the basic building blocks, the atom. Meditate on the nature of things, and you will realize that everything responds, everything acts and is acted upon. A mountain responds to wind and rain. Rocks tumble and crumble themselves into sand to become deserts or beaches. The electron responds to its nucleus and becomes the smallest component of an element. Atoms cluster according to universal laws and become molecules, and molecules make up everything from a star's blazing furnace to the spiraling ribbons of DNA. And can anyone tell us what point that mysterious condition we call life enters into the picture? In a broad sense, life is within everything, for intelligence cannot exist without it. In metaphysics, we act on this assumption, and it works. Does a situation have life? A child does. So does a pet or a plant. But what about an automobile or an electric appliance? If they do, they have some share of the intelligence that is God. Test it for yourself. When a troublesome situation arises in your life, when a child will not behave, a pet develops undesirable habits, a plant begins to wither, the car won't start, or the toaster turns out charcoal instead of toast, speak to him, her, or it. Remind it that it is part of God, that it has a share of His universal intelligence, and that it was meant to be part of the perfect harmony of the universe, and that your life, too, is included in that perfect harmony. You may be surprised to find that this treatment works, and even more surprised to find that it works better on a recalcitrant appliance than on a stubborn child. After all, the child has vastly more intelligence, not to mention free will, than the average toaster. If we truly believe that God is endowed with every quality of an infinity, loving, just, and all-powerful Creator, He will manifest Himself for us. You may feel that the solution that shows itself is more a result of your patience or your reassessment of the situation than anything else, and often you will be right. But isn't that newfound patience, the understanding that lets you say the right words or turn the right screw, the simplest and most direct way for God's intelligence to show itself? You are, after all, one of His instruments, and the harmony you create in your own life you also create for the child, the pet, the plant, and even the grateful slice of bread. Treatments are words, and we know the words are our most powerful tools. When a child brings home a bad report card, there is a reason, and kind, intelligent words are the only way to discover that reason and to improve conditions. When you show your willingness to understand, you are manifesting God's intelligence. This is true in any situation: school, work, social interaction, health, finances, life in general. One basic approach covers all. You must bless the intelligence of the person, place, object, or situation, and ask God to manifest His intelligence and restore the harmony that is His law. Even the most personal condition, from obesity to a stammer, depression to poor physical health, can benefit from repeated treatments. Speak directly to the condition, to the organs, the very cells involved, reminding them that they are integral parts of your intelligence and God's, and that they must function properly to maintain your personal harmony. It may sound foolish at first, speaking to cells or objects or circumstance, but you must remember that you are speaking to the Creator through one of His manifestations, and that your belief, your knowing that you are heard, is what makes the treatment effective. Disbelief or half-heartedness will lead to failure. God is unity. It may seem contradictory to talk about the absolute oneness of God and then talk about ourselves as individuals, or of God as individualizing Himself in various manifestations. But remember, the word individual itself means an indivisible part. And when we consider these parts as separate entities, it is only a way of focusing our attention and energy on an aspect of life in order to restore the whole to harmony. Similarly, we speak of ourselves as though we are many beings instead of one: the inner Christ, the carnal self, the higher self, conscience, body, mind, and so forth. Even when we use the word I, we are usually distinguishing ourselves from others and from God. But this is a way of thinking, for the T, the only T, is God. Again, we are merely focusing on one of His aspects, and to believe in oneself is to believe in God. It is this belief, this awareness, this intelligence that can bring perfect harmony to our lives, and whenever we face a task that seems too large, too fearsome, too overwhelming for us, we must meditate on this unity and realize that God acts through us, and the path will become smooth. Man is the instrument, God is the moving force, and the two are one. God is spirit. To many religions, spirit is probably the most familiar, yet the least easily defined aspect of God. Spirit has no substance, no visible form, yet it cannot be destroyed, damaged, and diminished. It cannot age, become tired or ill. It cannot die. It does not suffer sin, resentment, depression, or disillusionment. Spirit represents a higher plane than the physical. It is not subject to physical weakness, since it is pure essence. Rather, it controls the physical. So when you work on the spiritual level, you are controlling physical circumstance. For you are spirit. You can never truly die. The material body is not illusion any more than the physical universe is. The body exists and deteriorates according to physical laws. It is merely a temporary vehicle, an ambulatory conveyance for the spirit, the true essence of being, of self, during its brief visit to the physical plane. The body is not your truth, but merely an aspect of it, and as such is subject to your spiritual control. That control, the spirit, is your truth, and when you achieve a spiritual level while living on the physical plane, you may speak with that spiritual voice, lovingly to the very cells of your body, and they will do your bidding, because your spiritual voice is the voice of God. God has but one command for us, for the universe, and that is the perfection of absolute harmony. We've all read stories, and many of us have experienced so-called miraculous events, unexplained cures, spontaneous remissions, survival under incredible circumstances, amazing occurrences of good fortune. These are not miracles, but examples of spiritual control. That control begins with prayer or treatment, and it is not limited to your own body. As you advance, you will find that you can exert control over circumstance, the actions of others, even inanimate objects. If your wishes are expressed properly in keeping with the perfect harmony that is God's law, you will be able to understand this truth more fully and test it for yourself if you have read the previous books in this series. God is principle. A principle is a prime and irrevocable law. Gravity is a function of mass in relation to distance. This is true from the easily observable facts that things fall to earth, and that water seeks its own level, to the fact that even light cannot escape the incredible gravitational pull of the collapsed star called black holes. Science is man's search for the principles that govern the existence and the events of the physical universe. There are 4 known forces at work in the universe: gravitation, electromagnetism, and the weak and strong nuclear forces. Einstein, in his attempt to prove that these 4 were expressions of a single force, his unified field theory, was searching for a way to express what metaphysicians, or should I say metaphysicists, call the principle of harmony. Today, physicists are still struggling with the problem of grand unified theory. It's a matter of knowing something must be true while searching for absolute proof. In the meantime, we all go on with our lives within the framework of these immutable laws, working with them to the best of our ability. In a sense, metaphysics is closer to engineering than pure science. We acknowledge the existence of the principle that governs all things, and we make use of them, even though we may never fully understand them. In theory, the bumblebee's shape and wing surface to size ratio render it aerodynamically incapable of flight. Not being aware of this, the bumblebee blithely buzzes on. Simply stated, God is the principle of perfect harmony. We cannot change his principle, nor would we want to, but we can embrace it. End of chapter, end of book. This audio presentation of the Mystical Number 7 by Connie Mendez is brought to you by audioenlightenment.com. Copyright 2014. All rights reserved.